So I'm just heading out for my second appointment, trying this with the phone, see how we go. Good morning everyone. Today's our last day in Nuremberg. We've been here for 5 days now and it's been a wonderful experience. The people have been very friendly, very helpful, have had a really great time, lots of great food, lots of great things to go and visit. But today we're catching a train to Paris, so most of today will be spent travelling. Hopefully I will be documenting some of the journey as I go, and really looking forward to being in a new city tonight, which is really awesome. Speak to you soon. Auf Wiedersehen. So we're just in Frankfurt Station. Hopefully the microphone's working, and in half an hour we'll get the train to Paris. So au revoir. Bonjour, and here we are in Paris. I felt today would be a good time to do a brief summary about my learnings, findings, and collate some information that I received while I was in Nuremberg. I'd like to say a big thank you to the people that I was lucky enough to meet with. You were all very generous with your time and information, and we had numerous conversations which I know took out a lot of time of your day, and I really do appreciate it. So thank you. For the purposes of this vlog, I've summarised the top 5 differences that I noted based upon the conversations that I had and the meetings that I went through. I will say that I have been given rather generously numerous reading materials, as well as approximately 15 websites to go through. Some do need to be translated into English, so I haven't finished everything yet. But I thought that rather than wait until I've read everything, I will at least put my first, opinions on what I could note as different from Germany compared to Australia. And while I know this might change, because I do have some appointments in some other places in Germany throughout my fellowship, the purposes of this vlog was to capture my journey. And so as a point in time, here are the top 5 main differences that I've noted from my time in Nuremberg. So here we go. So number 1 is that education about employment post-school occurs at an earlier age in Germany compared to Australia. In Germany, students in year 7 and 8 will begin to learn about post-school options, industry requirements, what employers are looking for, whereas in Australia this doesn't commence until approximately year 10. It can sometimes start at year 9 through a work experience, but generally the meetings in Australia that occur with the careers counsellor often happen just before years 11 and 12. There are a number of benefits, I think, to having an earlier overlap between education and employment. One is, I think, that the more information you can give a young person about what happens after school and what's needed can be of some assistance to help direct which way they want to go. Obviously, not every young person, or adult for that matter, really knows what they want to do, so it's not always about having a chosen path and that's it. But I think if you can share some of that information with what's happening in the labour market earlier, the more students will at least understand what an employer is looking for or what changes of an industry are occurring. Following on from that, I think given the rapid change in the world of work, industries, technologies, the more information we can give young people about the changes, the better. I think that if you start early and you are building people up towards finishing school with relevant education, often if there's no overlap with employers or an industry until maybe the last couple of years, I think sometimes having that history of what's going to be happening is very beneficial. I also see that it can support the careers counselling teachers or support the parents of the young people to learn more about the world of work, which is often very different than the one that they might have entered into. Number 2 was a strong focus on education to support an employment outcome. So this came through with every single person I met, saying that unless you have relevant education that relates to an industry or supports someone to get into their chosen career path, you can be wasting your time. So, and I'm not saying that this doesn't occur at all in Australia, but we do tend to have employment systems that do focus more on getting someone a job, as opposed to where's this job going to lead someone, what's going to happen 5 to 10 years from now, and how can education support that. So I did find that rather interesting because, you know, in a way it does make sense. If everything is changing, we need to make sure that the education aligns well with the industries. And it does mean that there's a longer term view rather than just a short term job. Number 3 was that employers have a vested interest in tapping into the school-aged students. So in Australia, often this is taken in by the job actives, the employment agencies, who are directly working with young people to register with their agencies. Whereas in Germany, their system is obviously different. They have a federal agency, but it's the employers and the industry peaks that have a vested interest to sign up young students into their industries to work. I think partly this does come back to point 2 with the focus of education, where the return on investment can sometimes take 3 to 6 years to really be known and help employers with their workforce. But, you know, I just found it an interesting point because often, you know, in Australia for school leavers, it is agencies going in. And I thought it would be interesting to see what difference it would be if it was actually an industry peak or an employer themselves. I did get the sense that the same issues arise. It's obviously, it depends on how good a salesperson you would be to, in inverted commas, sell your industry and your job, but it is no different than an employment agency in Australia going in selling what their service can do. Again, it also meant the role of the parents are heavily vested here too, so often there does need to be that link with helping the parents along the same journey as the students. And number 5 was that in Germany there are a number of industries really looking for people, but not enough people to do the jobs. And similar to many countries with an ageing population and many baby boomers looking to retire in the next, say, 10 years, they are struggling to look for a workforce to continue the level of living and that they've currently got. So they are expanding to support employers to look at a more diverse workforce, and this can include obviously people with disabilities, mothers returning back to the workforce, and migrant workers. Again, I do think that this is in some ways similar to many other countries, but you know, the points of difference was that Germany can advertise, if that's the right word, for other young people or workers throughout the EU, whereas Australia is a little bit more isolated, and obviously it can be a more permanent move if you do need to come to Australia to work. That's not saying we don't have migrant workers come over, we do, But within Germany, it's a double-edged sword because other countries in the EU are facing the same issues that they are, and so the smaller pool of workers is in hot demand for certain industries. Number 4 was the types of industries that support people to take their first job and then support them through their working life. One of the more interesting conversations I did have focused around the industries that help support the economies of Germany and Australia, and it was noted that at least in Germany there are a number of industries where people can take a job at 18 and continue to work up right till 67, which is their retirement age. The growth industries in Australia, on the other hand, which at the moment are mining, construction, aged care, disability care, can often have a high level of physical demands on the body, and so people might start their career at 18 in these fields but could struggle to continue when they're in their 50s or 60s. Now, that's not to say some people in these industries don't have a lifelong career, whether that's they move into a coordinator or a foreman or a manager. But for people that do enjoy the hands-on type of work, it can be difficult to continue to work physically in construction in your 50s and 60s. And the other aspect of that is that in Germany, where the employers or the industries that can support someone through till 67 means that that industry is also able to offer work for people who are maybe in their 50s or 60s, more so than, say, the growth industries in Australia, such as mining and construction. But that being said, we had a discussion about the different the quota system, for example, in Germany for people with disabilities, where certain employers need to meet a quota of, I think it was 5% of their workforce who are registered with a disability, and if they don't do that, then they will be taxed higher. But then that money then goes into disabilities programs to help people to have better lives. But one of the points was, say, in the mining industry, where a disability can be acquired through an injury, in some industries like mining, because of that quota, it's in the company's best interests to support that person into a different type of job than they were in, and thereby also meeting the quota that company needs to meet. I just thought it was an interesting pickup from someone in Germany to say, some of the industries in Australia that are growing either A, don't have a high wage, so some aged care roles, disability support roles, as well as there isn't always an opportunity for people to have a lifelong career if that's what they wanted. So I know there's a lot of other thoughts around that, but again, this is just my initial thoughts about what I did notice different. So thanks for watching. I hope you found the top 5 points that I found through Nuremberg interesting. I am currently in Paris, as I've said at the start, and while I did initially have a few appointments, I've had a few cancellations and a few appointments move around, as well as my own misjudgment of my train timetable. So I'll be doing some touristy things through the next couple of days, and I will maybe post some of those on a vlog, I'm not sure yet, but until next time, au revoir.